I want to first welcome you to our first annual Surface Design Symposium, co-presented by Spoonflower and Craft Industry Alliance. We are super excited about this day-long event and super excited about this particular session, which is going to focus on Licensing 101. And we have three fantastic artists here today on our panel. I'm Abby Glassenberg. I'm the co-founder of Craft Industry Alliance. And I just want to go around and we'll have each of our panelists first introduce themselves before we get started. And just a word of housekeeping, if you have a question, which I hope you do during the presentation, feel free to put that in the chat section. And we do have Tara here from Spoonflower. She's monitoring the chat and she will catch your question. And hopefully we'll have about 5 or 8 minutes or so at the end, and hopefully we'll be able to get to as many questions as we can. So with that being said, we're just going to go around and have a brief introduction, and then we're going to dive right into everything licensing that you've wanted to know. So Janetta, if you could start, just tell us briefly a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Hi, I'm Janetta Gonzalez. I am an artist and an illustrator. I am also a designer, graphic designer for over 20 years, and I live in Los Angeles. I have been licensing my work since probably 2013, where I started doing trade shows. And let's see, what else do I do? And I also illustrate, and I also work with artists one-on-one and help them with their careers and their art as well.
Wonderful. Welcome, Janetta. Thank you so much. And Annie, you are up next. If you can just tell us briefly a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Annie Chen, and I'm based in Vancouver, Canada. I've seen some Canadians here, so hi. I started licensing my work since 2015. I also went to a trade show, and that's how I started the whole thing. And right now, I've licensed my work to fabrics and kids products, clothing, many things, and it's been very fun. So I am really excited and honored to be here today to share with you what I've learned from my experience.
Thank you so much, Annie. That's fabulous. And I'm already hearing trade show themes, so we're definitely going to touch on that. That's great. Stacy, you're up next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Stacy Bloomfield. I live in Springdale, Arkansas. I own a creative business called Gingerbur that I've been running for 12 years. I sell my own products that I've designed and created in over 800 retail stores. I also sell my own products on my website. I also license my art to countless amazing companies. I've done fabric, children's products, clothing, books, all sorts of goodies. Been doing that for about 8 years of my career. And then I also teach creatives about how to license their artwork in my program called Leverage Your Art, and then how to take your artwork and really get as much momentum out of it as possible. So that's kind of what I do. Thank you so much for having me here, and it's going to be so fun.
Yay. Okay, super. Thank you so much. As you can see, we have a real wealth of information and wealth of experience that these three panelists bring. So I'm very excited to dive in. And so our first question is kind of very basic, but it's what is licensing and how does licensing work just in general? And then sort of drilling a little deeper, what are some of the main areas that artists can license their work? And so Stacey, we're going to start with you with this one.
Yes, so art licensing is essentially renting your artwork to another company. So a company will approach you and they'll want to put your beautiful artwork from your portfolio on products that they create. And in turn, they will pay you usually either a flat fee or a royalty, or sometimes a combination of the two. And it's a really great opportunity to create artwork then that you can use across different industries, because you can license the same piece of artwork to multiple different types of companies. So it's a really great way to get more, mileage out of your artwork. It's a great revenue stream because there's not a lot of overhead. Really, it's just about your artwork and pitching and finding the right partnerships. And there's so many different products that you can license your artwork on. Such as, wall art, canvas art. A lot of us are here because we love fabric. So lots of different types of quilting fabric, home decor, clothing. I mean, essentially, if there's a surface, like you can put artwork on it. And so it really feels like art licensing is a little bit limitless in terms of where it can go, right?
And you said the word renting. It's renting your artwork. Is that, I think that's the word that you use, right?
Renting. Yeah, sorry if that wasn't clear. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
so
just
tell us what do you mean by that idea of renting your artwork out to a company? Because I think that's a really kind of easy way to understand what this is about.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm trying to think if I have like a visual, because I'm a big visual person. Let me grab something for you. All right. So this little monkey friend here, I licensed it to, it's now called Creighton Kids. So back in the day, it was called the Land of Nod. So I had this monkey already in my portfolio. And the Land of Nod came to me and said, we would love to make bedding using this monkey. And so what happened is I didn't like sell them the monkey illustration. It's still mine. Essentially, they, for a small window of time, produced products featuring my monkey. And they paid me a royalty for this. A royalty is a percentage of each item sold. I got paid for it. So it essentially means I still own this artwork. I can still use it across other industries. I can rent it to other people. I can't rent it to another baby bedding company at the same time that I am licensing it to this company. But ideally, it works that you can use your artwork and use it with multiple different licensing partners, all of whom will pay you to use their art, and you still retain the ownership for it. So it's like renting a house. Like there's still someone who owns that house, and the tenant is the person who is paying that person money to use the house for a while. So it's kind of like our real estate.
Okay, that's great. I think that's such an easy way to sort of grasp the overall idea of licensing. So thank you for that. And my final question there is just, does the contract that you have, for example, this bedding one that you just showed us, is there an end point? So in other words, you said you can't rent that monkey to another company that makes baby bedding at the same time that you're renting it to this one. But does that mean that it's time limited? And so in 2 years, 3 years, whatever the contract might say, you could then go to a different company with that same monkey?
Absolutely. And this, I think we might talk a little bit more about contracts later, but essentially, whenever you enter into a licensing relationship or agreement with someone, you're going to have a contract. And that contract is going to state specifically for how long the company who's licensing your artwork, renting your artwork from you, can put it on a product. And during those terms of that time, you are kind of agreeing that you're not going to also shop this piece of artwork around to one of their competitors, if that makes sense. So that time can vary. I've seen contracts, a one-time flat fee, meaning we're not going to keep track of this. We're just going to produce it once. We're going to produce or have you under contract for 2 years. I've even seen 5-year terms. It's very important to know that there's not a one size fits all, but there usually is a limited term for how long a company will use your artwork.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for giving us that foundation, Stacey. Okay, so my next question is about some of the advantages of doing this. So you're an artist, you're making artwork that you love, you're creating a portfolio, and licensing might be a next step. So why would you do it? What are some of the advantages? And if you can think of any disadvantages, anything that could potentially gone wrong or has potentially gone wrong for you, I think that's also very helpful to hear. And Janetta, we're going to start with you for this one.
Yes, there are a lot of advantages. What I love about it is that I can make this artwork that I'll be earning on for a large amount of time. It can go on for a year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years. So you're earning passive income, and it's just awesome to see. And it's always fun to see, oh, what am I going to get in this check? Because you never know how it's you don't always really know how it's going to sell. So it's exciting to see that extra money is coming in, and it continues to come in as long as it's selling. So that's really, really great. And it's something you spent time on a year ago, 2 years ago, and you're continuing to get money on it. Also, I love seeing my products in stores and online retailers. That never gets old, never ever gets old. It's super exciting to see, especially see it on shelf or have people send you pictures. Oh, I found your work in stores. So that's just really rewarding. I also think it's great to work with amazing companies, companies you've dreamed of working with, and you were able to get a deal with. That's just makes it even more sweeter, right? It's just exciting. think the disadvantages would be big thing about it is that you don't get paid for a long time. So it's really a long game. And I tell people that it's not, oh, I'm just going to start licensing now. No, unless you're doing a buyout, which is, we can talk about that too. But if they are doing a royalty-based deal with you, which means you get a percentage of the sales, generally you're not going to see that until it ships to stores and starts selling. In some cases, your client may know how big the order is if it's something, you know, that they had an order for. But if it's something that's going to sell online, and you do have to wait for the sales reports and to find out what you actually made on that. So that could be a year out in some cases. So, you know, you have to kind of plan ahead and know, you know, okay, I have future money coming. But there's no instant, unless you're selling it, there's no instant gratification. Also, there's also no guarantee what you're gonna make. So you can't plan for that and say, oh, I'm gonna make X amount of dollars on this deal. You don't always know. So you just have to kind of, you know, hope for the best. It's a gamble, it's a complete gamble. And then there's also, you know, you could make this beautiful collection or even beautiful art, and you may try to sell it or license it, and you may not be getting the return on it that you really hoped for. That can be disappointing sometimes, especially if it's a piece that you really, really love, and you may not be getting, you know, the fee that you want for it or the return in sales. So, that can be a bit disappointing. I think the financial part of it can be. But it can also be really, really, really wonderful too if something hits and does really well.
Right. Thank you so much, Janetta. And I also am thinking that when you're working, and you talked about some collaborating with these different companies, and there's some fantastic companies out there licensing work, my guess is that you would learn a little bit or maybe a lot about yourself and about your artwork by having these outside companies reviewing it, choosing, going back and forth with maybe different colorways or making small changes, or just watching what they are interested in versus what you thought they might be interested in. So I wondered, Annie, do you have any thoughts about that, about sort of your own learnings and your own growth from doing licensing and working with, in collaboration with various companies over the years?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, I feel like, yeah, I learned like I like to deal with clients myself. So over the years, I kind of gained more confidence, you know, negotiating contracts and negotiating what I want from them. Yeah, sorry, I didn't really get your question.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering if you learn about your own artwork, like when you make a sort of a portfolio of work or a selection of work, and you're looking at what these companies are choosing or are most interested in, whether that gives you some interesting feedback about your work.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I'm really nervous right now.
That's okay. Do you want me to, I can pass it over to Janetta and we can come back if that's okay.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, no problem.
I'm so sorry, I'm just black out.
That's okay, no problem.
So feedback on work.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it's the best thing because you don't really know how it's going to be received. Your artwork is going to be received until you start submitting it and until you start getting it in front of people. So that's the best way to know that you are on target, you are connecting with the right clients or potential clients. And they'll tell you exactly, you know, like, oh, I love this, but can you make this tweak, you know, or, oh, we'd love, you know, you to do this, or we have this program and can you, usually you'll be asked to modify things sometimes. So that's the best information. Then you know that you're going to make it custom for them and exactly what they need for their retailers and the people who are going to be buying it and resonating with it. They know what they need to sell. So feedback is huge, and it will help you also move forward with your portfolio because you'll have that information, and then you're like, oh, they told me this. I'm going to put those little bits and bobs into my future things. Because that's what's selling. That's what's, you know, what they're asking for right now. So definitely.
Right. Okay, great. All right. So my next question is about how you got started licensing. So I know, Stacey, in the introduction, you had said a company would come to you. I wonder if that's always the case, or if sometimes you seek out opportunities, you especially want to work with a certain company or whatever, and if they are coming to you, how are they finding you? So we'll start with you, Stacy, and then we'll go to Annie next as well.
Okay, I love this question because the truth is I kind of was naive in the beginning whenever I started art licensing, but I had a huge win in the beginning. So the first thing that happened is I wanted to work with this company right here called the Land of Nod. I'd only done one other licensing project before that. Someone found me online through my Etsy store and wanted to do magnets together. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, I like this idea. People like my art and they want to pay me to put it on products. Score. So I got really gutsy. And I pitched to the creative director of the Land of Nod at the time. I found their email. They listed it during a podcast. I stopped everything and I drafted my first real pitch email. I literally didn't have a portfolio. I had an Etsy store. I made a photo collage of my best work at the time. I inserted it into the email and I was just like, hi, I'm Stacy Bloomfield. I love your company. I think we'd be a great fit to work together. Here's why. And you can find my work here. And they wrote back almost, I don't want to say immediately, but within a week. They're like, yes, let's work together. And I was like, it's that easy. You just email people and then they want to work with you. And then, of course, I realized that was like a really great first win. Really, it's a numbers game. Now I know after years of experience, I am constantly researching companies that I might want to work with, trying to find their contact information, preparing pitch emails, and then crafting my portfolio of work to really suit the client that I am talking to. So a lot of it is me reaching out to a creative director, an art director, the head of product development. And it takes a lot of time and research and trying to find the right partners for my type of art. It wouldn't make sense for me to pitch to like a skateboarding company. I don't think necessarily for my aesthetic, but it might be for someone else. But I was the right fit for a nursery decor company because my portfolio was filled with nursery decor. And then to wrap things up, people do find me on social media, and I've had probably equal success with clients finding me on social media using hashtags, people sharing my work, and then people reach out to me via email. And it's still a conversation. Just because someone reaches out to you doesn't mean it's a done deal. And just because you have found the art director's email address and have pitched to them doesn't mean you're going to get a yes. I've had contracts that it's taken me 3 years of conversation to go from first contact to finally getting the contract. So that's kind of a summary of how I got started and what I do.
Thank you. And what about you, Annie? How did people find you when you were first getting started?
Yeah, so I started with, attending a trade show in 2015. I went to Certex, and that's how I got started. So I put together, a few collections of prints and patterns, and I went to the show and made some great contacts there. So I went there for 4 years straight. I think the contacts I got there were great, but like what Stacy said, it usually takes a long time for something to really, realize and see your stuff on products. It usually takes 2 to 3 years. And after that, as I developed my portfolio, there would be people coming to me as well on social media, or maybe they would email me after they visited my website, and they would, have some collaboration projects in mind. So that's also one way to, get projects to work on. But like everything, it takes a long time for something to be realized. And right now, I would also, go on Instagram, or do some research on the internet to find the companies that I really want to work with, and I would just email them and just send them my work and to show them what my style is and what projects I have done before. And that's also one way. It's a more proactive way to get business. So I would say just keep showing your work and keep emailing people. I've also worked with Land of Nod, which is creating kids before. And I think that's the case. I just, I keep sending them my work. And then one day they say, oh, I'm interested in these patterns and that prints. And then, yeah, I actually got some products from them after that. So that was a great feeling. So you just have to be very persistent and just, yeah, keep bugging them.
Yeah, and two follow-up questions. One is around Instagram DMs as a way to pitch. Is that a good way to pitch, a bad way to pitch, or what you're feeling? And the second one is around getting that no. So if you send an email and you either never hear back or you get no, we're not interested. Does that mean no forever, or does that mean no for right now because we already have somebody else's monkeys and we don't need another set of monkeys kind of thing? So Janetta, I don't know if you have thoughts on that, either on pitching through Instagram DMs or on what that no might mean.
Okay, pitch actually can answer both. Pitching DMs, I have not heard of that, but anytime I've used DMs to reach out to companies was to ask them if they work with artists and if, we can license our work with them. And I've also asked for a contact name or information to talk to. So I use it more for that. I'm assuming, I guess you could send them something, but the person on the other end in the DM is usually a social media manager. It's not. Right. It's not that person that you need to talk to. So I would absolutely just ask them who that person is if they can give you that information. So it's worth a shot. You can't, just ask. And then in terms of
no, what does that no mean? Yes.
No means no right now. That's all that means. And it's really not an industry where you have to have a little bit of a thick skin, and you do have to understand that it's not your work that they're rejecting. It's not you that they're rejecting. They're not rejecting anything. They're just saying, like you said, they may have too many monkeys right now, or we're not doing monkeys right now. It's not don't take it personally. That's what I'm saying. So it really isn't. Just know that, okay, well, there's 4 other greeting card companies that I'm going to reach out to. I'm going to move this along and keep it moving, right? Like, so if you get that no, don't feel like, oh, I'm over with this, this collection's over with, I'm never going to license it. No, find other companies to send it to, because you will find somebody eventually. Also, just I would say just take that no as no right now and be persistent. Like Annie was saying, you have to stay in front of them. They love to see a lot of artwork. Don't feel like you're bugging them. Continually send them new things, especially if it's somebody you really, really want to work with. So, and then, if they don't say anything, because sometimes that happens too, you won't get an email back, a response, no, yes, you won't hear anything. Don't take that personally either. They have a gazillion emails and a lot going on. And they probably did open it and looked at it and they were like, nope, moving on. This isn't going to fit with what we're doing right now. So just keep it, like it's a numbers game. Just keep sending in work and then it'll hit at some point.
Yeah, I think developing that thick skin and not taking it personally is hard. I think that's hard. It's easy to say. Yeah. But your art is you. It's a big part of your identity, and it can be difficult to get that no. So I don't know, Stacey, you looks like you might have something else to add to that.
2 very quick things echoing what Janetta said. First, I visualize a boomerang. I call it my boomerang technique. And what I imagine is every time I get a rejection, I'm going to redirect that energy like a boomerang, and I'm going to pitch to someone else, because I feel like if I get a no or a not right now, it is really hard to take that. And there's no reason you can't feel sad, but I like to feel like I have some control of the energy of what I'm letting really seep into me as a creative. So I kind of have a practice now of when I get a no, I immediately go to the next person on my list that I was planning on pitching to, and I just send out another pitch into the world, because then it's like I'm redirecting that energy out again to a possibility. So that's just where mindset, I think, is really important. And then the other thing, there's a little cute app that you can add to Google Chrome called Streak, STREAK, and it lets you see when people open your emails. Oh, it's so great, because now I feel like I know if someone's just not opening my pitch emails, or if they're opening them and just not replying. It's literally just helps me to feel better about things. So there's that.
That's great. All right, thank you so much. Okay, so for my next question, we are going to talk a little bit about payments. So we touched on this a little bit earlier, but when it comes to licensing, how do payments typically work? Is it a set royalty percentage? Can you give us an estimate maybe of like what that royalty might be in your experience? Paid quarterly? Are there different percentages in different fields? So maybe, you know, by the yard fabric is typically one amount, but then home decor or stationery, you know, might be somewhat of a different kind of standard. So I'm just kind of want to talk a little bit about the nitty gritty of payments in there. So I don't know, Annie, do you have thoughts about payments that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I feel like this is a very big topic because every project is so different, and it's really hard to give you guys just, you know, a number, because usually payments comes in different forms. It could be just royalty only or advance plus royalty. Sometimes they want to buy out, so that's just flat rate, right? And they own your copyright, which I don't like that. I don't like to sell my copyright. And also there's also just flat rate. They pay for your usage, but it's also like they get a there's a time limit for that. So maybe after 2 years or 3 years, they have to pay you another flat rate. So it's very complex. So yeah, but usually I would say, I don't know, for your royalty rate, if you know the distribution, the sales is like a lot, usually the percentage would be smaller. And then for something like print on demand, it's not like they only produce it when someone order it, then the percentage will be higher. I would say at least like 10%. That's what you would expect. And then for the rest, it varies. I don't know what Stacy and Janetta have the same thought. It's just hard to, you know, pinpoint an exact number. Yeah.
Any further thoughts on payments and licensing structures, and maybe how it might vary by different industries or types of products? Janetta, it looks like you might have some thoughts.
Yeah, generally it's structured by if it's an independent retailer versus a mass retailer. So I know in my experience, if they're selling to mass retailers like big box stores, Sam's Club, TJ Maxx, whatever, then you're going to get a smaller percentage, and that's usually 3 to 5% roughly. And then if it's going to an independent retailer, which are like mom and pops, smaller chains, smaller stores, then you get a larger percentage, and that could be 7 to 10, sometimes 12, and if it's an online retailer, a small, which would be probably in that category as well. So yes, because they're selling in volume. So if they're selling to Sam's Club, they're going to be selling a lot. They're going to get a huge order. So the order's so big, you're going to get what seems like 3% might not be a lot, but if they're buying, you know, 50,000 units, then you're going to be doing all right. So that's how that works out. And yeah, so that's, and then it's term, and well, there's also flat rate, like you were saying before. So there's licensing royalty, licensing flat rate, which means they just give you, like I've done that, all of these. They give you a flat rate for your work, and they can use it for 2 or 3 years, something like that. Then they have to come back and renew with you if they want to continue to use it. And then the other structures would be buyouts or category buyouts. And buyouts means they just own it. Buy, it's gone. Like you have the copyright, you relinquish all of that, and you want a bigger price on that. If you're going to give them the artwork literally and the copyright, or sell them the artwork, then you do want to make the most that you can from that. The category buyout is they're just buying it out for a category. So say they just want to put it on gift bags, then that's what they put it on, and that's in your contract. They cannot use it for anything else. And then you negotiate a rate for that product category, or maybe it's stationery, but then you list out all the items on the stationery. The thing is, you want to be really, really clear on your contract what they are making, because you don't want it to be vague and then they're putting your art on 50 things that you guys didn't talk about, and then you're not getting paid for those items. So that's where it can get really tricky. and messy. So that is like the number one thing you want to make sure that you're crystal clear that you have permission to use my artwork on X, Y, and Z products. And then you have to put in the contract the images of the artwork. So it's very, very clear like what they have.
And when we're saying percentage in these royalty arrangements, we're talking percentage of the retail price of the product. Is that
Wholesale.
right? The wholesale price of the product. Okay, that's good to know. All right, so people can keep that in mind. So it's a little bit less than the retail price. All right, let's talk a little bit about agents. So big question is, do you have an agent? And if you do, how did you find your agent? Or maybe you had one in the past and don't have one now. How did you find your agent? And what did you need in order to secure your relationship with the agent? Did you have to create a body of work for them, or what did you need to do? And has it helped you? Any disadvantages, any advantages of working with an agent? Annie, do you want to start on that one?
Yeah, I had an agent before. I worked with her for 2 years, and I actually met her at Certex, which is a licensing trade show. So she came to my booth and she said she's interested in working with me. So that was a more special circumstance. So she came to me, and then after the show, I got in touch with her, and I showed her more of my portfolio. And then we agreed to work together. But I also gave her, a time frame, like, okay, I'm gonna work with you because we're gonna sign, we signed a contract, and that will list everything, very specific. For example, like the fee she's gonna get if I license something. And usually I would say the agent fees varies from 30% to 50%. I know some hotshot agent actually got 50% of what artists make. So my agent, I think it was 30% at that time. So I worked with her for 2 years, and she got me some, great licensing projects. But then after that, I feel like, I don't know, I feel more comfortable dealing with clients myself. I'm quite confident negotiating the rates with client directly. And I would say the pros with working with an agent is that they will actually push you to create more work. But at the same time, it's a lot of submitting your work to them, and after a while, you still need to follow up with them, because you are not the only artist they have. Usually they will have maybe 10 to 20 artists that they manage. So you're not the only one. So you always have to kind of keep following up with your agent, because sometimes you submitted something and then you haven't heard back for, I don't know, months. So yeah, that's one part that I don't really like working with an agent, because I feel like I usually have to spend so much time like babysitting them. And I could have used that energy and time just looking for new clients for myself. So yeah, I would say it really, it depends on your expectations. If you don't like talking numbers with clients, you don't feel comfortable negotiating a contract, then I would say, yeah, maybe when you're starting out, you can find an agent to work with you. But either way, just do a lot of research on the agent and see what kind of, who are represented by the agent. And maybe you can get in touch with one of the artists and, talk to them and ask them questions before you decided to get in touch with the agent. And I would say there are no good agents or bad agents. I would say there's only a good fit or bad fit. It really depends on your expectations. And for me, I gave myself, 2 years. So I told myself if it doesn't work, then I would just walk away. So that's what I did. But it doesn't mean that I won't work with an agent anymore. It just maybe if there's a right timing or right person, then I would consider working with an agent again. So that's my take.
That's great. Thank you so much. That was really helpful. Stacey, do you or Janetta have anything to add to your experiences with an agent, or I don't know if you do? Yeah.
I can just say that I've never had a licensing agent. Not that I haven't tried to get one. It's just that I kind of learned how to pitch myself and how to find contacts, and I really enjoy that process. So for me, I've never needed an agent to get any of the clients that I've worked with. However, I have had an agent for a literary agent for books, and that can be a little different. Some agencies will cover everything from gift to product to book, and other agencies will focus just on one specific category, like illustration specifically, editorial illustration. And then there are other agents maybe for books. So I had a book come out last year, and I was able to secure that book deal using an agent. So it's a little different with books, but it's not terribly dissimilar, I guess you could say. Really, you have an agent who helps you get in the foot in the door with a publisher who you want to help bring your book idea to life. And then you have a contract and an agreement. And then we didn't talk about this, but with books, often there's an advance payment and then a royalty on the back end. So what that means is a publisher, whenever they say, yes, we want to make your book, we're going to pay this flat fee up front, and it's against future sales. And once you sell enough and make back that advance, then you continue to get a royalty. So I like my literary agent a lot, and I still work with them on a project by project basis.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I have an agent as well, but not for product or pattern work or surface pattern design. I have an agent for illustration. So they handle any commercial or editorial work that comes in, magazines. I've done art for brands, as well as I'm doing a children's book right now. I'm illustrating a children's book. So the book came through my agent, and they negotiated all of the advance and royalties. So that is something that is royalty based, like she said, and books are. So that, I guess, fits into the licensing world as well. But yes, I represent myself for pattern, surface design, those kind of things, product related projects. And then I work with my illustration agent when it's just straight illustration jobs. And I don't have a literary agent. They handle the books as well.
That's great. It's so good to know that agents, there are different kinds of agents, and you can, do surface design on your own and have an agent just for illustration or an agent just for literary. So that's really great. And it's also great, as Annie said, to know that you can enter into that contract for a period and then go off on your own for a period and maybe come back to it with somebody else. So it's not all or nothing, but it's something to consider at times. So that's extremely helpful. And I know we did touch on trade shows, specifically on Surtex, but prior to the pandemic, I would be interested to know, what your experience was attending trade shows, any tips that you have for exhibiting at a show in order to secure surface design, contracts or opportunities, and then maybe some tips on following up with the folks that you might have met at the show to make those sort of first connections actually happen and turn into something real. So Janetta, we'll start with you on that one.
Okay, so for trade shows, I started in 2013, and I did Surtex with a group. So I did it with a collective, and there were 5 of us that exhibited together in two big booths actually. And then we came back the next year. I did it 2013, 2014. And then I took a year off, and then I came back in 2016 and did my own booth. And then 2019, I did Blueprint in San Francisco, and I had a table set up there, and I did that show. And I also did one of their online virtual ones. I think was the first one for Blueprint. And in my experience, now it's different. Obviously we're talking pre-pandemic. So Surtex is a great way to get your foot in the door, to meet all the people you want to meet in one place, to have them see you, to meet all the other artists that, you know, in your industry and your peers. It was just, for me, it was just a great way just to do all of those things and to start really having those conversations face to face with a client. Like, what are you looking for? You know, here's my book. What do you have coming up? And also doing with a collective, it was super interesting because you got to see how they were responding to other others' work and their portfolios. Yeah, so you got to hear all the conversations at once.
That feedback, right?
It was
That
a lot of good
we were talking about earlier. Yeah, you get to see it and happening in person, and being in a collective, especially. That sounds like it would be very informative.
Yeah, and then when I came back on my own, I didn't have that. So if they'd walk by your booth, if they, you know, they didn't connect with them, that was it. But when we had 5 different people's work, they could stop and just, you know, have a variety of things to go through. So I definitely saw the difference. But you know that if they are coming, when you have your own booth, that they're coming to you because you have something that they're really interested in. So it was a big learning experience. It really just quickly got you like into the industry and in understanding what, you know, how it works and knowing all the people and the key players. So that's what I did. And then even the virtual show, it's very different than because it's really just a few pieces of your artwork in a gallery, and then they click through and then they can look at your portfolios and set up appointments with you to talk to you. So they really aren't seeing you in all your glory in a booth. They're just seeing like they would on your website, like, you know, they're just kind of cruising through everybody's profile pages. So it's a different approach, but you know, it's still another way to get your work seen.
Great. Do either of you have anything to add about trade show experiences, or you know, what you need to do to prepare to go to a show? Any tips on trade shows?
Yeah, I've done Surtex for 4 years, 2 years by myself, and then the other 2 years with my then agent. And at that time, I feel like it's a great place to start, because I think it was a great motivation for me to put together a body of work to show people and then put myself out there. Because before that, I feel like, oh, my work, I don't know if my work is good enough to show people. But once I did that, I feel like I actually gained more confidence showing my work. And because you also see what other people are, what their work is like when you walk the show, and you get to, you know, meet other artists. And so that's what I like about trade show, because you get to meet people face to face, and then you can actually talk to a real human beings. I love that part. Yeah, but I feel like after 4 years, I have mixed feeling about a big trade shows like that. I actually did another smaller one in Paris. It's a more curated show, and there were only, I think, 10 artists on the show, because it's mainly for retailers. I mean, yeah, for wholesale. But then they have a small section where 10 artists would show their work to those you know, buyers at the show. And they, I think, yeah, they would just buy. Usually in Europe, they buy your work outright. But I went to that show. I like a smaller curated show. So I feel like if I want to do it again, I would go to a smaller one rather a big one like Surtex. But yeah, I think it's a great place to establish contacts. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Oh,
Stacey,
and one thing. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh,
Stacey,
sorry.
I see your finger was before mine.
Hey, everybody. The only thing I want to add is my trade show experience is a little different because I started as a product-based business. And so when I would attend trade shows, they would be for my wholesale line of my illustrations. But the show that I used to go to, called the National Stationery Show, was held at the exact same time in the same building as Surtex. So what I was able to do was to kind of double dip a little bit. Not only was I able to prepare my products to sell wholesale, I would always come prepared with my licensing decks and my portfolio and little grab bags of things to give to art directors who would come by my booth. And a lot of it is in the preparation. I would do the research before any trade show, and I would reach out to art directors and say, I'm going to happen to be at the National Stationery Show. Here's my booth number. I know you'll be walking Surtex. I would love it if you would come by my booth and we could chat so I could show you my newest work. And my last trade show prior to COVID-19, I had so much traction really with the licensing side of my business, just as much as I had with the wholesale side of my business, because I saw it as an opportunity to, again, have that face-to-face conversation with someone that we don't get to have when we're doing email. So I always like to think of every opportunity. How can we use this opportunity to build relationships with people? Because really all of this is about building relationships. It's a long game. So at a trade show, it may not be about like signing a contract. It rarely is. Really, it's about establishing a connection with someone, so that after the show, the conversation can continue. And I think it's really important to realize that a lot of people go to trade shows and monetarily, it's really expensive. It's a lot for us. So you walk away from a trade show and you can feel really deflated. I put all this effort into making my booth beautiful and being ready and preparing the right work for the right people, and I don't have anything to show for it. That's where the follow-up is so important. And I think anyone who's ever said they had success from a trade show, a lot of it comes from that follow-up. So I just want to remind you that, yeah, it's really expensive, but sometimes the dividends pay off later. So that's my perspective.
Yeah, and I can definitely piggyback on that because when I did my own booth, there's a lot of unforeseen things that happen. And I picked a corner booth because I wanted to be on the corner and have everybody see me. And then I found out a few weeks before the show started that they didn't sell the last few rows. So I ended up being at the back, all the way in the back, almost in the corner. And it was really a poor placement. And I did not get a lot of traffic. And so, you spend a ridiculous amount of money and months of your life preparing for the show, and to find out that because of something like this, it could actually not, be to your advantage. So it does happen. Like, you do have those duds, but that show, I did happen to meet somebody that I really wanted to work with. And I did a few little projects with them in the few upcoming years, but then now it's like really kicking off them, and we're doing some really exciting things. So it does take a while to build those relationships and then for the right opportunities to come. So here I'm thinking like, oh, this show didn't pay off, but now I can honestly say it did. And it's taken a few years, but that I built that relationship, and I was consistent, and it's great. Now I can look back now and say, okay, this was definitely worth it. But trade shows aren't really happening like they used to. So I was seeing in the comments that everyone's asking about them. So they're shaping and changing with the times. So I think it's really just kind of important to do your research and look into it and see if it's something you want to do, because you do not have to do a trade show at all. It is not required. It was when I started, like in the 2010, 12, around that time, it was like, that was the thing to do. And that's why I did it. But now it's a different game. Like, a lot more people are involved, and everyone's accessible through email now, and the way we're working from home and all of that. So it's just a lot easier to find the contacts online and to reach out and just do business through your computer. It's, the face-to-face is great. So Zoom helps for that, and you get to know your clients. But you do not have to do a trade show, and you do not have to spend all that money. Just use your time, and, and be strategic about who you're going to reach out to.
That's great. And I love this idea, the sort of overarching idea that it's about relationships and that it's a long game. I think those are two really important ideas to keep in mind. And I wanted to ask if you thought it was possible to make a full-time income through licensing. So if that's what you really want to do, can you do that? And if not, do you have some other income streams that are related to your artwork, and what are those? So Stacey, do we want to start that one?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I want to say that it is possible to make a full-time living with licensing. I've definitely had years where I could live off of my licensing income, but the thing about licensing is it's inconsistent, because you might have a contract that one year is bringing you in a lot of income, And then let's say an art director leaves from that company and all of a sudden there's a new art director in place and they don't want to work with you anymore. That's happened to me. I mean, it just happens a lot. I mean, it fluctuates. If you sign a licensing contract today, you're not going to get paid for that money in general, could be years from now. So even though you can, if you build long-term relationships with really great clients like fabric, there's a reason why so many people want a fabric contract, because if you can build that relationship, you can design fabric for so long, right? But the truth is we all need multiple income streams. I think I've not met a single licensed artist who doesn't have other income streams. And that's really kind of the foundation of how I teach, is that you can build a beautiful art portfolio, you can pitch and license it and build that as an income stream, but you can do other things with that artwork too. Like I have my own product line. I sell on my own website, stationery, tea towels, calendars. I sell quilt patterns to complement the licensed fabric. I create a lot of products that I sell to literally complement the work that I have licensed, which is pretty fun. I've wholesaled. Like I said, I'm in 800 retail stores with products we develop ourselves. A lot of licensed artists, they teach online. They have courses. They teach on Skillshare. You can teach in person at workshops. There's really so many ways that you can leverage your art into multiple income streams. And that's really what I think is important to remember. Licensing can be great because it's low overhead, right? You're not having to invest a lot of money. But at the same time, it just takes a long time to build up that momentum in your licensing career. So hedge your bets and create multiple ways to create income, right?
That's great.
Yeah.
Anyone else have anything to add to that? I think that summed it up really well. So thank you, Stacey. And then my final question, then we're going to get to Q&A, is what advice would you have for someone who is currently maybe selling their designs on Spoonflower, for example, but would like to expand out into licensing? So what should that person do? Who would like to take that one first?
Yeah, I have a Spoonflower shop, and I actually started it before I licensed my artwork. At first, I use it to produce my own products. So I did that, I think, 2013 and 2014. I just print my own fabrics and make simple products to sell. And then after that, I have a period of time where I just I produce my own products, and then I try to do the wholesale thing like Stacey does. But I realized I don't like the production side of it at all, and then try to find wholesale contacts, because I need to go to trade shows and all that, and I didn't really enjoy the process. So later on, I found out, oh, there's an industry called surface design where I can just license my artwork and I don't need to worry about production. So I think Spoonflower kind of helped me to go through that process. So later on, I would still put my design on Spoonflower, but at the same time, I started to create some mock-ups. I think mock-ups are a great way to sell your design. So I think, yeah, that's if you wanna pitch some ideas, mock-up is a great way to sell your ideas. And I still have my Spoonflower shop right now, and sometimes I will order some fabrics to make make things. And I think that's a great way to showcase your design on a real thing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. Great advice. Stacey.
So I have a Spoonflower shop as well, but I'm really not prolific there at all. I just have it. But I have several friends who are very successful with Spoonflower, and some of the advice that they gave me was, one, you need to have lots of designs in your Spoonflower store if you really want to be successful there. So one simple trick that a colleague taught me is, you have one design, let's create it in tons of different colorways, tons of different scales, and let's really make it so that your Spoonflower store is beefed up, and that gets more eyes on it. And actually that advice is good for any print on demand company that you want to work with, whether it's Spoonflower or another print on demand. Lots of designs are needed to really get traction there and to create income. And I think also an advice is to treat your Spoonflower store as if it's like a runway or a trial for working with an actual fabric company. Create actual collections for your Spoonflower store. So often, and I've done it myself, we'll just throw up a design because we love it and it's a good repeat pattern. But take it a step further and think about how you can craft a beautiful color story and collection as if you are launching your own fabric line on Spoonflower. And I've had colleagues who have actually gone from Spoonflower to having licensed fabric collections off of Spoonflower because they treated it as if it were literally a runway. Like, I'm ready for fabric. Look what I'm doing here. Look at how creative I can be and all the different ideas I can have for my fabric collections. And they tell stories with the collections they create on Spoonflower. So I really think there's an opportunity there, right?
Thank you so much. And we're going to get to questions now. Tara, Tara is from Spoonflower and she's been monitoring the chat for us. Thank you so much, Tara. And I'm hoping that you have a few questions that people have been asking. And thank you everybody who's been asking questions and been answering questions. I see that all going by in the chat and super appreciate it. But any questions for the panelists that we could ask now?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Yes. Wow. There are a million questions and it was really hard to keep track. So let me see. I'm going to stick with the last one so far. How many designs should be in your fabric collection when you're pitching to clients and stuff? Like, what is a good amount to have in your collection, in your portfolio?
Janetta, do you want to answer that one?
This is for fabric specifically?
Yes.
Fabric, and I'd love Stacy and Annie to talk about this because I actually do not have a fabric deal. They do, but my experience, it's about 6 to 8. Is that right?
Yeah, that's about right.
That's
Yeah.
all right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But also,
Yeah.
I want to point out 6 to 8, but also for some design, you can try 2 to 3 different colorways for one design. And also, I think they like to have a variety of patterns in the collection. Not everything needs to be the hero design. So if you can create something low volume, which means just simple icons with a solid background, sometimes they look for that. So yeah, just remember, not everything needs to be hero design. It has to be a mix of, different things in the collection. Yeah.
Great advice, Annie. Tara, is there another question?
Yeah. So after you license your design, when the licensing term actually expires, do companies stop selling what they already produced and immediately pull the products off the shelf, or do they keep selling your product till it's sold out? Like, when do the royalties stop for that?
Excuse me. There's a sell-off period that will be on your contract. And so it's different for everyone. Their sell-off could be a year, it could be 2 years, it could be 6 months. So depending on what that sell-off is, they're able to kind of move that inventory during that time. And then when it's over, they shouldn't be selling it. It should be done.
Great. Thank you for that clarification.
So do you guys get legal advice for your contracts, or do you, or there's standard contracts that you go with, or like, do you have someone else read the contracts?
Right. If you have an agent, you certainly have your agent be able to help with that negotiation. But if you don't have an agent, are you just doing it yourself, or do you have a lawyer? Yes, Stacey.
I will tell you a few things that I've done over the years. I've made a lot of mistakes with contracts transparently because I didn't know who to talk to when I first started. One of the best things I ever did was I actually hired, there's an agent. There are a lot of agents who do this, but one agent named Jennifer Nelson. She's not here today, I don't believe, but she's a colleague of mine, and she will read through contracts. You pay her a flat fee and she will read through contracts and help you negotiate them, even if she's not your agent, which is such a valuable thing to offer to artists. So for me, she saved me from 2 instances where I almost signed something that I shouldn't have. And I learned so much from the process too. So now I actually don't have to hire people for everything, but in those early important contracts, I was so grateful to have a second set of eyes. And a lot of people are afraid of working with lawyers because, if you don't have a lot of income to begin with, it's like, I don't know if I can invest money towards paying a lawyer, but there are some really great lawyers out there. I work with one named Jason Aquilino. He's based out of Atlanta, Georgia, and he works specifically with artists because he understands financially not everyone can, put tons of money towards like contract reading. So he's a real reasonable person and he's really great to get in contact with. And there are so many lawyers like that. You just have really word of mouth is really the best recommendation when it comes to either finding a lawyer for contracts or an agent to help read things over. And now I feel like I've learned enough during the process that very rarely do I have to go to my lawyer now to help me negotiate or talk to Jennifer.
Thank you. And Tara, I think we have time for one final question.
There's one about like how much do you have to modify your design for a client? Like, is that really common? Like, how attached should you be to your designs, and how willing should you be to like work with the art directors?
Yeah, that preciousness.
Yeah.
And letting go of it.
Yeah, it's not that serious. I don't think it does, right? It's not. They're not going to ask you to completely rework your layout, or they might want a color change. They might want you to add something to it. And then there's going to be a lot of reformatting. So it may not work in the template that or the size that you made it for. It might not work in their template. So you will have to kind of rejigger the work a little bit to get it to fit into whatever it is the product is that you need to go on, because it will, it's not one size fits all. So you will have to modify it, but that's really it. It's nothing you have to really worry about. They're not going to ask you to change it completely. No. And if that's the case, then just make a whole new piece based on what they need.
I would say if they want you to customize your design, you have to tell them I need to charge more, because it's not, because you actually need to give them more work. It's not like ready to use patterns. So usually I would tell them, well, I have separate rates for ready to use designs and also customized design. So you have to let them know that you are not doing extra work for free. I think that's very important.
Annie, that is so important. Great point. Thank you so much for adding that. I actually think that's a great note to end on with licensing, about valuing yourself and your work. So thank you so much to Janetta, to Stacy, to Annie, to Tara for monitoring our chat today, to all of you who've just come and asked great questions and been here to be part of this event with us. We are so happy that you're here. Thank you. There will be a recording of this and all of the sessions today. You can look for that sometime at the end of next week. And we just really appreciate you. So thank you so much to everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.